What's up, guys? Welcome to the Mississippi Real Estate Podcast, hosted by Ryan Watson.
And I'm Tripp Spruill, where it's all about real life, real talk, and real estate.
Join us as we dive into the stories, trends, and insider tips shaping the world of Mississippi real estate.
Whether you're buying, selling, investing, or you're just curious about the market, we've got all the insights you need to navigate with confidence. So if y'all are ready, let's get real.
All right, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Mississippi Real Estate Podcast. We have a special guest today. She is a licensed real estate agent for RE/MAX. She is the Central Vice President on the Executive Committee at MAR. Is that right?
That's correct. That's right.
And she is a partner with IM LLC, and we'll get into a little bit more of that shortly. So, but with further ado, we have Stephanie Nix.
Happy
Stephanie
Tuesday.
Nix.
Happy Tuesday to you
Welcome,
guys.
welcome. It's
Spring break.
Yeah, and way better than the hectic Mondays I usually have. Tuesday's like the day to relax.
That's right.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful day.
We're glad to have you on. Thank
Thanks
you
for
for
inviting
spending.
me.
Yeah, we know you're super busy, and thanks for taking some time out to kind of talk to us about, your real estate career and business, and then what you got going on with the IM LLC. So we appreciate you being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into this thing. Let's get started with who is Stephanie Nix?
Loaded question.
Where are you from?
Yeah.
Where you grew up? Let's kind of start there.
Well, I grew up in Starkville, Mississippi. And of course, we all know that's God's country.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I got to disagree right off the bat.
We got Ole
Oh,
Miss.
well, that's
He's Ole
okay.
Miss
We can
fan.
still be
That's
friends.
right.
I think they're the Bears still. Are they the
Oh my
Bears?
gosh. Okay, let's let it
I
go.
don't know. Sharks or something.
But I did. I grew up in Starkville, and my family moved to this area when I was 14. So we won't say what year that was, but I can give you a frame of reference.
Okay.
It was the very first year that Northwest Rankin was open.
Oh,
And
wow.
I saw a connection there. But
Yeah.
we moved down here, and we lived at the reservoir. So that's where I went to school the first year.
Oh, fantastic. So you were the first class?
I was in one of the first classes.
Oh, wow.
I was in the 10th grade that year.
Okay.
Wow.
And got my driver's license, and my dad had let me drive all over Starkville when I was 13 years old. And we moved down here. I was like, so much traffic, but I got my license and was ready to go because I had driven so much. But went to Northwest Rankin, made a ton of friends there.
Mm-hmm.
We moved over to Madison the next year because my dad said, we were going to move over there, find a house over there. And I actually finished my last 2 years at Madison Ridgeland Academy.
Okay.
But then went back to Mississippi State. Had a great time. Found out they were not offering degrees in partying. So I came home.
They don't usually do that.
I came home and went to Holmes Community College. They had opened the Ridgeland campus and got a 2-year degree in marketing from there. And then went on to Mississippi College where I was studying accounting.
Well, that's a great school too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we kind of learned our social skills at State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay, that's
absolutely.
fair.
Yeah.
I did that at Ole Miss too.
Yeah.
But then we came back. You got an
I doubt you
associate's
learned
degree.
anything at Ole Miss.
You didn't learn anything anytime. Anyway, I'm kidding.
No comment.
So you got your associate's degree, and then you went on to MC,
I went to
which
MC
is
and studied accounting.
Wow.
I did not ever graduate from there, but it was a nice marriage with the marketing and accounting for what I do now.
For sure, yeah.
And I spent 10 years in banking and finance before I got in real estate.
So on prior podcasts, we always kind of feel like it seems to be so far in that what we've interviewed people is like realtors seem to just fall into the business. It's not like this is what I was destined to do right when I got out of school. So you kind of have your banking and finance led you to real estate.
Actually, I was destined to get into this business. Okay. My dad was a home builder and developer in Starkville and got his real estate license. Yeah. And I'm the oldest. So from the time I was 5, I spent my summers and after school with my dad.
Okay.
And I grew up. He had me running table saws and miter saws and staining woodwork and painting. I was rolling paint when I was 8.
Oh my God.
So the hardest thing I find to hire these days is a painter because I'm very critical of their work.
Well, I don't like to paint.
I don't either.
My wife was painting our bathroom 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Like, no.
But I grew up around the industry. And I can even remember the house my dad was building in Starkville when he said to me, you can do anything you want to do. You can be anything you want to be, Stephanie. Don't let anybody tell you any differently, but be in something to do with real estate.
Yeah, facts.
He said, you can be a mortgage lender, you can be an agent, you can be a builder, you can be a landlord. And so that's where I kind of dipped my toe in and decided I really love helping people. I love helping first-time buyers, especially when I was new. And even now, it's just difficult with my schedule to do as much of that. But helping them navigate that process because they don't know anything.
Yeah, and they can get really like shock and awe of the process.
But what we find is, I'm working with a couple now. They've lived in their home 30 years, and they sold a home when they built this one. But she said, we haven't done this in 30 years. We have no idea what's going on. So we forget that sometimes. We do this every day. And that's why if we can really provide a good value to our buyers and to our sellers, they really appreciate us.
Absolutely.
And it's unfortunate in every industry is this way, be it real estate, insurance, at car sales, it doesn't matter. There are people there who are genuinely invested in helping those people they come in contact with. And there are people in every industry that are just out for themselves and unfortunately going to take advantage of people and give the rest of us a bad name. Right.
Chasing the dollar. We said that with Jordan Blissett the other, we've had this has also been a common thing.
Being honest.
Doing it the right way. But it doesn't take, this is going back on previous podcasts, takes one person, really, or a few, and it turns the whole bin of apples bad, or at least in the perception to the outside.
You see that in a lot of different things. I was a police officer for 10 years, not to jump off track for a minute on this, but it just takes one bad police officer and then we all...
Well, you see that nationally too, but that's what nationally too, and we've had so much going on in the industry lately, and there's all this...
A lot of black eyes.
And all this confusion with the NAR lawsuit, and the buyer's agency representation, all that. So we're already navigating.
That's a whole other podcast right there.
That is a whole other podcast. Anyway, we don't want to track, but yes, you're right. And so Dad was a builder, and so our 8-year-old and our adolescent self was in the contracting world, which my wife will love because she's a DIYer.
Good.
She can YouTube anything.
She needed to do it.
She's a sweetheart.
I YouTubed it. Oh boy, but she does a really good job. So you got that experience,
right?
But then you really connected it as you got into your early career in banking and finance, which also plays into real estate.
Oh yeah.
So it's like you had a lot of knowledge coming in before. So what led from banking and finance into the real estate license?
Well, I knew I wanted to be in real estate, and I did go through a divorce at the time and decided it was time to jump off. I actually had a banking customer, and he's a realtor now. If you guys know Steve Houck.
Steve Houck.
I don't know.
He works mostly up in Madison County.
We need to know Steve Houck.
He's a great guy. He and his mom owned a retail store in Maywood Mart.
Oh, yeah. Maywood.
It was called Houck's Young Kids or something. It was a children's store. And he was a bank customer, and he asked me, he said, what do you think you're going to do? Are you going to stay in banking? I said, I've always wanted to get in real estate. And he said, I think you should do that, Stephanie. You would be awesome at that. And I went home that afternoon and looked up the Mississippi Realtor Institute and called and got the schedule and enrolled in classes.
Self-starter.
Wow. And I had vacation. I had 2 weeks of vacation plus an extra day off that I could take because I did my fair share to United Way every year. So I took I took a week in June and took the first class, a week in July, because back then it was only in-person classes and they were all here in Jackson. But I did the 2 classes. And I did not take the test in August because of a pre-planned vacation. But in September, I took the test, and I'm really good at multiple choice tests. But when I went in, I was just blowing through. And all of a sudden I finished, and nobody had turned their test in. Like everybody I was like, oh my gosh.
Like, do I need
Maybe
to be
I
the
should
first?
sit here a few minutes. And I thought, no, Stephanie, you studied, you prepared. And all you hear is pass or fail.
That's
you
right.
don't know. And I turned it in. That was, my last day of vacation for the whole year. It was September. And I had passed the test.
Pass.
So
that's all you need to know.
The next week, my goal was to shift from full-time at the bank to part-time. I was a customer service rep. And the very next week, I got a call from a girlfriend at a branch that I had worked at before. And she said, oh, this girl Angela's leaving. I said, where is she going? And she says, well, she's going back to school. Well, she was part-time, and she had taken my part-time position when I went full-time.
Oh, wow.
So I called branch administration downtown. I was like, you don't know this yet? Because she just put her notice in the inter-office run to come down there, but she's leaving in 2 weeks and I want her job.
There you go.
So I slid back into that part-time position and set a goal to leave the bank in 6 months, which I did.
Did the bank know this goal existed? Or?
Oh, yeah, they did. My manager did. I said, I'm going to be gone in 6 months. It made it more accountable for me to share that goal, and I still believe in doing that now, having goals and sharing them with people that I know will help keep me accountable. But I hit the ground running. I left the bank on March the 28th and joined RE/MAX on April 1st. So.
Okay. So you've been with RE/MAX the whole time?
Except for 6 months. I spent 6 months at an ERA franchise, and I don't even know if they exist anymore. I know they're not here in our area.
I was about to say, I don't even know.
I moved over to RE/MAX, and I've been at RE/MAX since then.
Okay.
So.
Wow.
So, tie in real quick.
Yeah.
Our very own Gary Parker. You
I know Gary. Well,
right?
Well, he's on EC with me. He's past president on the executive
committee. But he also was at RE/MAX at one point, wasn't he? Did he do RE/MAX?
If he was, he was there before me. I'm not going to say he wasn't, but that was before my time. Not today, not today, Gary. But Gary and I have another connection because his wife is related to one of my first cousins. So.
Oh wow, y'all are family.
Yeah, we're family.
Okay.
I'll
family
claim
by
him.
marriage.
I'll claim him.
That's fine. Okay, well, we're gonna have Gary on too. He can iron out the details.
Yeah,
but I knew y'all knew each other through the MAR stuff. But I think he was with one of these anyway.
Yeah, I think he was with the franchise. I'm not sure it was RE/MAX.
So,
before.
My question is, how did you get into MAR? How did you get into
well,
that?
Of course, I joined the Realtor Association. And at the time I joined, it was Jackson Association of Realtors. I don't know if you guys remember that.
I don't.
Well, to tell you how long ago it was, in 2014, I was installed as really the final president of Jackson Association of Realtors. And it was, I take that back, excuse me. I served in 2014. I was installed in December of 2013, and it was on the anniversary of the day my dad had passed away.
Wow.
So it was appropriate for me that was a little God wink for sure that it was on that anniversary if he couldn't be there. But I was installed as Jackson Association of Realtors president for 2014, and midway through my year, we finally got it through that we changed the name to Central Mississippi Realtors. And so I went out, and Carol Stewart, who's moved away, went in behind me as the first installed president of Central Mississippi. And so it goes way back. And with that involvement, there was always encouragement. I always had a broker that was encouraging us to be involved, to understand what our PAC was with the Realtor Political Action Committee, because we are a PAC that is not about us. It's not about our industry as realtors and helping us, benefiting us. It's about the consumer. It's about property owners. It's about property ownership rights, and that's what we fight for. And so, I think it's important to volunteer. I think it's important to be involved. And I've made a lot of good connections through that. That's just a blessing byproduct, if you will.
Man, she sounds like Gary.
No, she does not.
Well, no,
Gary.
So I'm going to rewind a second. Started with RE/MAX. How long were you a realtor with RE/MAX before you decided I want to get it into more like leadership type roles, getting into that pushes you into that type of stuff, to be an advocate for the...
Well, let's see, now I got to do date calculations.
Well, you don't have to be, it can be ballpark.
It was about 7 or 8 years because I was single and I was very focused on my career at that point. It was always important to me to do a business of quality, not quantity.
I like that.
And so I had to work really hard, manage my dollars really well, and that was kind of my focus. I actually got my broker's license in, what year was it? 2005, 2006, and purchased the RE/MAX franchise in Madison from another broker. And that was the perfect time going into 07, 08.
Right when everything
nothing bad was
it was
happening.
a great time.
Real estate's going to be great. And then you're like, I just purchased this brokerage and the market bottom fell out.
But, it was fine. We got through that. It was a good position to be in because the majority of our business was people that had to move those years. If they weren't being relocated or didn't believe they needed a larger home or a smaller home, they were just sitting tight. And so I got a lot of referral business from RE/MAX agents from other parts of the country. And that really helped sustain us through those few years with those referrals coming in and out.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I was happier as an agent. I'm still a broker associate, but I love helping people. And I can't solve everybody's problem, and it's not my job to solve your problem. It's my job to help you see a solution to your problem and what works for you, because I don't have to live with your decision. You do.
That's true.
And if I just tell you what to do and later on you don't like what I told you, then it's my fault. And I think that's so important. And as a broker And I was guilty of it as an agent. And I had a great broker back then that he was like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. You've got to solve this problem. You come and tell me what you're going to do, and I'll tell you, I'll give you my 2 cents on it.
Yeah.
So
tough love.
Yeah, it really had to be. And I wasn't real good at that with agents. So I decided I would go back to helping my clients, and I merged with Vicki and Danny at RE/MAX Connection.
That's an incredible story, because we had Clay on and we were talking about the agent versus the broker. And I feel like it's and then I'm gonna plug Hustle Humbly podcast, because I've been listening to them too. And they're
pretty good.
They're really good. They're 2 female agents from different brokerages, but they are trying. They've established a community for real estate,
similar to what we do. But
we're
different brokerages.
Yeah, our goal is to establish a community of real estate and everybody who touches the industry, or whatever. But it's funny because the Hustle Humbly girls were saying, it's almost like a perception gets made in real estate where it's like we put the proverbial corporate ladder, the real estate ladder in. It's like agent, broker, have your own brokerage. And it doesn't have to be that way.
No, it doesn't.
No. And so you just told a perfect story about, hey, you have all these experiences, right? But that molds you to who you are and your experience. But you just said, I serve my people better as an agent. And that just proves to everybody who wants to get in this business, you don't have to be a broker to be successful. And that's what we were talking about with Clay. So anyway, that was
matter of fact, Clay would say that broker means he's broker than everybody else.
That can be true sometimes.
Yeah.
No.
But anyway, so I just wanted to kind of connect that dot and whatnot. So anyway, would you say that it's important for agents to try to get in some role involved, CMR, MAR, like leadership type stuff? That's a great question.
I think it's very important, and there are a lot of reasons for it. One, when you get involved in leadership, you are connecting with agents, not only in your own area, but from other areas of the state. And through those connections, again, I've gotten referrals, and now if I have somebody going to Columbus, Mississippi, or the Gulf Coast, I know multiple agents. And they would. I don't always refer to another RE/MAX agent. I know some of my RE/MAX brokers are going to be upset to hear that. But here's the thing. I weigh the client. I look at this client. What are their needs? What's their personality? What's their goal? And I'm not going to put them with an agent on the Gulf Coast that really specializes in Bay St. Louis when they want to go to Ocean Springs.
Well, that's fair.
And if they're just different personality types, I'm going to put them with an agent I think can work really well with them. And making those connections. And that's something you really get from being involved in those roles at CMR and MAR. And then even from that, you can get involved at NAR and go to national meetings and make connections there.
I guess the reason I ask that is because just like you, it seems like you're a perfect advocate for it. Gary Parker's the same way. We're fortunate to have him in. He's had those experiences.
Great guy.
And he's telling us all the time, guys, get plugged in, which I do agree. I think it is a great thing. But I also think with newer agents, you don't have to do it like right away. Like get your, because there's so much you're learning, right? To try to build a pipeline, serve clients, and then you can kind of ease into that, right? Because you 7, 8 years maybe.
I did 7 or 8 years also, but I was also active in junior league at that time, so I was very volunteering. I'm a big believer in volunteering and serving your community.
Community service is great.
Involved in my church. Now, I can hide at church because we're on the media team, and I'm on a camera, and when we do camera, we're dressed in black. And I had a good friend who's a realtor sitting right here for 3 years. And one week when she came in, I stepped up on the platform and I spoke to her, and she's like, Stephanie, what are you doing up there? How long have you been doing that? I said, 3 years. But I'm not there every Sunday either. It's like one Sunday a month I'm up there. But I think it's very important to serve others. But as a new agent though, of course they have the post license class you've got to take, and you think, oh well, good, I'm good for 2 years, the first 2 years, quick as I can do this. But going to state convention, wherever it is, if you register and go, that's a business expense. That's a business trip. And you can get all of your CE. Now, I'm lucky, state convention's in October, and my license renews in October. When I'm taking the CE, you've got the carryover, so many hours of carryover.
I'm due for some CEs this year, too.
You need to go.
I just renewed mine this week.
And I think we're in Natchez this year. I'm not 100% on that, but I think we're in Natchez this year.
Well, I'm 100% look into that.
Absolutely, you should. And it's on the website. It's on the MSRealtor.org website. plug.
Plug away. That's what we want.
That's what it's
for.
But yeah, we'll be there, and like I said, I'm pretty sure it's in Natchez, and that's always a great location.
Yeah.
To have that. So.
This is sorry, we kind of go down rabbit holes.
That's okay.
I had this little side story. I had somebody call me the other day, and they were asking about, do you think I should get my real estate license, all this? And my answer is always like, yeah, that's what you want to do, But I feel like, because I had a friend, and we're going to have her on, I think, next week after you, actually. And she actually was my realtor.
Oh, cool.
And I got into investing, which we can also get back into that later. But and that led me to get my license.
Yeah.
And so, people do it for different reasons. But what she did for me was, she's like, hey, when you get really ready, like, I'm going to give you the good, bad, and the ugly, per se. Like, you need to know what you're stepping into, because I feel like there's also a misperception
for sure
that it's just all glam all the time. Check us out on Instagram.
Well,
check
that
this
our
out.
fault?
Here's this free house, and it is. I mean, that's the fun
Yeah.
parts of it. And David Ostrander said this too, like the sexy part of real estate.
Right.
So I just told this dude, I was like, I'm 100% for you doing it, and I can give you some insight to that. But you also need to know. You said post license. There's a lot involved. Licenses, post license, super key. No, I tell people all the time, it's kind of a pay to play game. So anyway, you just brought that up and it made me think. But I'm not saying don't get in the business. Just understand what you're getting into.
Absolutely, because like you say, there's just a whole lot more to it than people realize. We focus on the glitz and glamour, and they need to know the responsibility you're taking on to help someone.
Yeah.
Because whether they're a first-time buyer or they're selling because they're going through a divorce or a death of a spouse, real estate transactions for those buyers and sellers are extremely emotional.
Oh, yeah.
And you really have to lean in and be willing to listen and hear what they're not saying to help them figure out and show them their options, and make sure I include, these are really your options, but you've got to make that decision. What do you think is best for you?
Yeah, my first probate deal dealing with death was extremely eye-opening.
Yeah.
And then there was days I was just a shoulder, and you get in those situations.
That's right.
And so anyway, that's a really.
I had a probate deal recently that it was the one that fell through.
Oh yeah.
None of my fault or anybody's fault.
Yes,
sure.
I heard
we make
it
sure
was.
that.
I saw on Facebook that it was your fault.
I wouldn't be surprised.
One of them community groups.
I'm not saying surprised with that. I'd be surprised a realtor could put that out there. You just never know.
No.
But anyway, no.
Yes, to be clear,
Play nice
not of any fault
nice.
of our own. It was the bank.
It happens sometimes.
We're going to blame it on the bank.
It was the
bank. Don't
bank.
say the bank name.
I mean, we're not.
Don't mention what bank.
All right, so
that's good stuff.
Our next question is, so tell us about IM LLC.
Okay.
What is this that you're a part of?
Well, IM LLC is a real estate investing company.
Okay.
And in 2019, my husband and I were talking about me not quitting my retail, because I love my retail real estate, and it certainly could be a source of helping fund this project. But we had owned rental properties before, here and there, and bought them, sold them.
I got them too. I love it.
And I'll tell you, I've learned from other investors, the only house you ever regret buying is the one you sold.
That's true.
And in 2016, I decided, and I'll tell on myself here, it was my 50th birthday.
Okay.
The year before, for his 50th birthday, he had done a wild hog strip to Sturgis. Here's a secret about me we haven't discovered yet. I ride a Harley.
You do?
I ride with my husband.
Dang.
We're going to have to hear more about this.
Well, you normally go to the end and say, tell us something people don't know, but we'll go get it.
We're going to get into that.
No, we're going to get way more into that.
We have some fun stories. But he did his wild hog trip with guys to Sturgis, South Dakota.
That's awesome.
And my mom turned 75 that same year. And she's like, well, I said, do you want a party or do you want a trip? She said, well, I want a trip. I said, where do you want to go? And she said, my mom always wanted to go to New York City, and we never took her. I said, is that what you want? She said, yeah, that's where I want to go. So I called my brother. I said, brother, Mom is talking about her birthday, and what she'd really like to do is to take a trip to New York City. He said, I'll pay her way if you go.
If you go, if you take her.
I was
That's
like,
pretty fun.
great. Great. So my husband and I had been to New York before, and I'm very comfortable. Dad taught me to always, situational awareness, learn how to read maps, know where you are.
I'd be looking at them buildings and like running into folks.
Well, it's all on a grid.
Yeah.
And when my husband and I went, we were there 2 days, and people were asking him what bus to take.
Oh,
so we really get around easily in big cities. Yeah. And so I took her up there. We did Times Square. We did Central Park. And actually, a young man in Central Park approaches us. We're walking through the park, and there's a restaurant where they had the bicycles you pay to rent and just pull them off the rack and go. And he pulls out and he goes, "Excuse me, can you ladies tell me which way to go to get to such and such?" And I was like, "Well, let me look here on my map." He said, "Oh, I have an app." And I said, "Well, they have maps. There's a visitor center right back here, just a short distance. You can get a map."
Yeah.
And he said, "I don't need a map. I have an app." Well, he had on a sweatshirt from Michigan or Michigan State. And a couple of years before, they had that ball game where the team that wasn't supposed to win pulled off a big play right at the end and won. That was the other school. And he was like, "That was the other school." I said, "I'm so sorry." I said, "Well, they do have maps down there." He said, "I have an app." I said, "I'm not lost." I have an app. It shows right. I said, "This map shows me that restaurant right there and all these, and it shows me where you're trying to get to." Yeah. He didn't want it, so I was like,
"That's just a new,
So
apps versus like paper. What are you talking about? I'm not going to use,
No. But yeah, there's one of those rabbit trails. That was my husband's 50th birthday, mom's 75th birthday. So I said, "Well, next year I turn 50." Okay. He's like, "Oh, we need to go here. We need to go there." I said, "Hold up, my birthday."
Yeah.
I sold a rental property here in Ridgeland, did my very first ever 1031 exchange, and bought a condo at the beach.
Come on!
Wow.
And
well, you can't be mad about that exchange. That no. You said selling a house is a no.
Yeah, because I've sold it. We sold it 3 years later, but it appreciated $70,000 in that 3 years, and now. One was on the market recently for about $150 more than I sold it for, and I was like, "Oh, I wish I had kept that one."
Yeah.
But we've done some other fun stuff in the meantime, and we've got rentals again.
So again, I got into real estate because of our rentals.
Yeah.
So me and my wife started investing in properties, and then I was just like, "Hey, I want to get my license," and I think that would be good, benefit me to move if I'm quicker if I needed to or whatever. Nothing against my realtor. She was awesome. She helped us buy 5-6 properties.
Right.
Yeah. But we have been here lately, man. It's been like, "Oh, do we sell?" Because we've had them for a while. But then me and my wife always settle down. We're like, we can't get another property for what we got them for 7-8 years ago.
Now's a good time to hold.
Yeah, but, so we're holding, like you said.
So in 2019, we sold the beach condo.
Okay. Was this for the birthday dip?
Yeah. Okay. I got it for my birthday in 16, sold it in 19 around Thanksgiving, and I was going to start investing in real estate. And my now partner, Stephanie Smith, who's the IM LLC, and another partner who's no longer with us, approached me. We all went to church together. Okay. I did not know Sydney. I knew the other partner, and I had worked with his son and daughter-in-law, so he knew me as a realtor as well. And he said, "I'd like to talk to you. I've got a partner we'd like to meet." And we sat down at Corner Bakery over coffee, and they said, "We want to start investing. We want to do fix and flips, and we need a realtor to help us find properties and talk about what a good price to pay would be. And then once we get with the contractor and get it rehabbed, we want you to sell that property." I was like, "Well, okay." And so they started asking me, Sydney and I didn't know each other. He started asking me questions about my background. And it came to the forefront that I had grown up the daughter of a builder. In fact, when we took, what was that test they give you in high school, the military ASVAB, is that it? It's some test the military gives you.
ASVAB or...
I had scored in the top 4% in the nation on the construction portion of that test.
Well, you had the experience.
I had more knowledge than actual hands-on experience. But after that meeting, the other partner called me back and the next day and said, "We want to talk again." So we sit down and talk again, and Sydney's asking me all these questions, and he's asked some of these questions before. He's asking the same question in different ways, and just going through, really listening to everything I'm saying. And I showed him a house that day, and I said, it was a home in Canton. The owner had acquired it through tax sale. And it was vacant. It was an old conventional elevated foundation. The subfloors were rotten in it. The floor joists were great, but the subfloors were rotten. Mm-hmm. And so it was going to be able to be purchased for about $15,000. And I said, it'll probably take about $70,000 to fix this up. Back then, you could do that in 2019.
Yeah,
and,
not today.
Not today. But I said, probably $70,000 or so will fix it up. And he said, we'll get some contractors in here. So I had 2 licensed contractors come in, and both of them came in with bids around 70 to 75.
And you were spot on.
And so I get called back for a third meeting, and I could tell the mood had changed because I had been seated next to Sydney at the first 2 meetings, and now he's across the table from me. And he leans across the table and he goes, "You are the real deal." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You know so much more. You're more than I expected to get just from a real estate agent." Mm-hmm. Yeah. He said, "You have so much knowledge, and we want all of you." Yeah. I was like, "Well, I've got some other investors I do work with. I mean, I'll have to talk about what they do and anything that doesn't interfere." He said, No. We want all of you. Yeah. And for the investment of your time and your expertise, we want to make you a full partner in our company."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I don't even have to think about this. I called my husband and I said, "Remember how we were talking about doing this one house at a time?" I said, "Well, he's got more zeros than we got."
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we made the decision to move forward with that. And I have just not looked back. We primarily fix and flip. And we started out with kind of, that was our goal. We're going to buy properties and fix them, have our margins, knew what we wanted to make. And we started running into a lot of situations where a seller wasn't always in trouble financially, but sometimes they're in trouble emotionally. Yeah. They've just hit a place. In fact, I had a lady say this past week, because this home has fallen into terrible disrepair since her father passed away in 2019. And I've been trying to buy it since then. But she said, "Stephanie, I didn't know what to do, so I just didn't do anything." Yeah. And it's that emotional trauma that you have to walk with people through very delicately.
Yeah, for sure.
And now we look for opportunities, not just to buy houses cheap. We buy them at the courthouse steps, and there's no emotion to that. A lot of times I try to know what I'm buying is vacant.
A lot of people don't know that's still a thing. But
So, just to sit down and connect with somebody about that, what they're going through, and listen to them and talk to them and talk them through, look, my offer, I hope, doesn't offend you. But things cost so much more than you think they do. Yeah. And I'll ask him, "What do you think? Here's everything I think that needs to be done to make this house market ready. What do you think that's going to cost?" And what they think is usually anywhere from 70 to 50% of what the real cost is.
Right.
Yeah. And they don't think about anybody, whether it's them or owner occupant, another investor. There's those holding costs. Insurance is not cheap. If you've got to get a new roof, it's not cheap. You've got to deal with all the utilities. We have requirements. We have to keep an eye on our properties. I have to keep an eye on contractors. And they just don't realize the cost. And I'm more than willing to spell some of that out for them. And when they understand where we're coming from, they can appreciate that. And then on the flip side of it, if I've got a buyer that, during the bidding wars, I was really working with my buyers to not do bidding wars, and I tried to find off-market properties. But we've taken several that we've bought and helped buyers I had been working with get into those properties. They got them below appraisal, and we still made a profit, and we helped the seller get where they needed to be.
So you hold, because that was in your inventory with IM LLC, right?
Right.
Okay. So this wasn't so it's almost like, I don't want to say pocket listing, but these are houses y'all own as the
That's
as
right.
The entity.
I'm just like any other for sale by owner, and I go out there and I let agents know. I do want agents to know, look, if I have a house, I own it, my company owns it, and you have a buyer, call me. We'll be glad to work with you. We'll be glad to compensate you, because as an agent here, I want you to have representation. I want you, buyer, to have an agent representing you. I'm more than happy to participate in that compensation, because I know way more than you do. You're a buyer. Not only am I a seller, I'm a licensed agent. I make sure they always know that. And now I've had something to do with the condition this house is in. I've made decisions here, and I've hired the contractor, and I've got more liability than maybe an investor that doesn't have a license. So I try to be completely transparent.
There's a lot to unpack here, and I want to try to go back, because you said 2019 is when we kind of got into this, and that was right before COVID, and it got red hot crazy. Houses going over appraisal, no home inspection, cash, out-of-state cash, whatever. It was nuts. You had to, so how difficult y'all were able to start building? Well, okay, let me back up. So who's Sydney?
Sydney's my partner.
Okay, he's a investor already?
He had been an investor in real estate in the past. I guess the best way to describe Sydney is an entrepreneur.
Okay, perfect. That's where I was trying to get.
I'm in my 50s. He's in his 70s. We are business partners, and it's great.
No, I was just trying to lay out the foundation of your LLC. So he already had some inventory?
He didn't have any inventory in this. They had started this LLC, and what they had done initially was they had actually worked with a nonprofit doing some properties in South Jackson. And it was trying to help the nonprofit. And we kind of shifted gears over time because it really just wasn't working. You're helping a nonprofit, and if they can make a profit and you can get a return on your investment, that's great. But a lot of times, even the agent that was helping those nonprofits were inflating values, and they were buying stuff and couldn't get what they thought. And so when I came in, I was like, look, there can be houses in the MLS that could be deal opportunities. You just have to watch the inventory.
That's right.
You have to look at what's going on. And I pick up the phone and call those agents. And of course, during the red hotness, I could buy a house and think, okay, we're going to buy it for this, and we're going to rehab it, and we're going to sell it for $245, $250. And by the time we got it to the market, it was $275, and we had multiple offers.
Well, and I think that's where I was going. Is so you helped build the inventory. But then when it got crazy, the good thing is y'all had some of this for first-time home buyers. People don't realize how much competition pushed out people who, because a lot of outside investors came in, contracts, whatever, and they were out pricing even just our people who were just trying to find a family home for the first time. It was really kind of heartbreaking in some of those things. So y'all had, so that's where you had a little bit of a niche and a positive to where you're like, okay, cool, we have some of these, and I have a buyer, we can put you right here and let all them do bidding wars. That's okay. That's
exactly
cool.
right.
How difficult though? Fix and flip. Y'all come in, we got XYZ on our margins, and then you were in this IM LLC wasn't together, and all of a sudden the whole thing changed. How did that affect your margins and how you looked for what you were looking for?
Well, honestly, we had a goal to buy 2 houses a month, and we bought about 5 a year.
So there you go.
That's
how
difficult.
Yes.
But what I found is, and I went to the courthouse steps a lot. Because at the courthouse steps, you got to have the cashier's check in your pocket. And I showed up for one house to bid, and I knew it was probably going to go in the 180, 190 range, and there were 20 people there to bid on it. Now think 180,000 times 20 people, we got all these cashier's checks.
I bet they pushed that thing to 250.
Well, I got that house. That particular house, I had a buyer. Their bidding wars were still going on. She was a single mom, had moved here after a divorce for a job opportunity. And we had looked at the first house literally 2 or 3 weeks before the bidding war started. We never had a dream such a thing would happen. And she made offer after offer, could not afford to pay over appraisal because she didn't have any extra cash to bring to the table. And so I told her, I said, I'm going to find you a house. And when this one came up in foreclosure, I looked and the lady had passed away. And did some research. There was only a daughter. Did some research. There was a tenant in the house. She had done a lease option with them and took a chunk of money and then didn't pay the mortgage. And once I found out who he was, I knew him. But I went to the courthouse steps, 20 people bidding, and we got to about 190. And another investor said, Stephanie, I've got more money, but I'm going to quit and let you have this. When everybody comes to chuckles, because not everybody else quit. And a guy that had not been bidding had jumped in. And I had a funeral to get to. So I'm bidding, and I got to 205, and this guy right by the auctioneer's chuckles and bids 206. And I didn't say anything. The auctioneer calls the auction, and I said, congratulations, you bought a house. And I whirled around, and I walked off. Because I had to get to a funeral. Nobody knew where I was going. That was about 11:45. And at 1:45, I'm standing at my kitchen counter, chewing down a chicken salad sandwich because I was starving by this time. And I had not taken my money back to the bank yet. I was going to get something to eat and then go to the bank. And my phone rings, and it's the auctioneer. And he said the buyer, the winning bid, failed to produce funds.
Uh-oh.
And you were the second high bidder. There were too many people for me to call everybody back. I've already called the third high bidder. He was from Hattiesburg and had somebody here local bidding for him, and they'd already put their money back in the bank. He said, I'm going to be at the courthouse in 30 minutes, and if you don't have your check, do not show up. Wow. I said, well, I've got my check. So
and I'll see you in 15.
Well, from Ridgeland to Brandon is 30, and I think I made it in 20.
Yeah.
But I called the guy who had dropped out saying he had more money, and we agreed on the way that why don't we partner on this deal? Because he is a licensed contractor. Okay. And I knew I had a buyer. So we go back in, the opening bid starts, well, there was one online bidder, and we can't see them. We don't know what their bid parameters are, but we got to 178. And we bid 177. They bid 178. They were slowing down. We'd been jumping pretty good. Yep. And it was so funny. The auctioneer leans forward as though they could hear him through the computer and said, this bidder's name just turned yellow. That means he's almost out of money. So I said 180, and that was it. He turned red when he did 180. Yeah. So we got for 180 what I was willing to pay 285 for.
Oh, well, there you go.
We went in. Okay. It was a very light rehab. Mm-hmm. I knew at that time it would probably appraise for about 255, 260. And I came back and I said, I'm going to forego my commission. My buyer was not a first-time home buyer. Mm-hmm. She was knowledgeable. I said, I will get another agent to represent you. I'll compensate them. She said, I don't need that. I do want to get a home inspection, but that's all I need. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, my partner did a very light rehab. It just didn't need a lot. Mm-hmm. And we sold it to her for $15,000 below appraisal. And we still made over $20,000 each. Now, those are rare, but we helped a buyer get into a home. And I still talk to her, connect with her. She loves her home.
Yeah, that's a great story. Yeah. That's a win-win for everybody. We were just talking about this the other day, a book I'm reading, and it's Don't Split the Difference. Thanks, David Ostrander for And I was in that, very first was like find the win-win for everybody. And it sounds like you found multiple, like 4 win-wins.
Exactly.
Are you done with that book yet?
Not yet.
Because we also helped the tenant financially. We kind of helped him go out and find a new place to get a fresh start.
Yeah. Well, okay, so that all makes sense. Okay. So, admittedly, COVID changed your game a little bit, your buying plan. Mm-hmm. We come out of COVID. Mm-hmm. Now, building prices are up, and everybody's like, my house is worth $1 million. So, how has that affected the fix and flips for IM LLC?
Well, I think it is a great question. The big impact now is we really have to watch our numbers. Yeah. And I really want a chance to go through a property, preferably with my contractor. Mm-hmm. And we're always future projecting. Mm-hmm. I was telling them 2 years ago, rates are starting to go up, prices are fixing to start coming down. Mm-hmm. That's something my dad was always good at, and I feel like it's a bit of a talent I gained from listening to him. He taught me that. So it's looking out there and sharing with a property owner when we're looking at buying it. Look, I know what you feel like this is worth today, and that's if it was all fixed up. And here's what it would take to bring it to that. Yep. But today, we're having to look at the fact that by the time we get this rehabbed on the market and sold 4 to 6 months from now, it may not be worth what it's worth today. Mm-hmm. Great conversation with an appraiser the other day. We had one come in about $6,000 below. The appraisal came in $6,000 below our contract price, but it was still in my parameters at the high end of where I wanted to be on that property. And talking to an appraiser about it, he messages me about 2 hours later. He said, and I just came in $6,000 low on a new construction. Yeah. So what we talked about, he said, on every appraisal, if you look at them, they always have to talk about the market. And is it an increasing market? Is it a stable market? Or is it a declining market? He said, right now, we're noting that the market is stable, but as we get more lower sale prices, we're having to justify saying that it's stable, and we're going to hit a point that it's declining, and realtors are going to go in, and they're wanting to look at the last year or 6 months. I look at the last 4 months in a market like this and look at where prices are dropping, because you got a future cast by the time we have 30 to 50 to 60 days on the market and go through all of this, the price value could be less than we've started at. And to be very aware of that. So I've always tried really hard to stay attuned to the market and be aware of those situations.
Yeah. Well, that's knowing your numbers.
Yeah,
and you
absolutely.
need to. A lot of
Yeah.
people, I think, get in the fix, like you hear everybody say. Like when I got into, and still to this day, like people will be like, "Oh, I want to invest in rental properties too." And you can have long-winded conversations, and you find out it's almost like the real estate rule, 80-20 and all that,
Right.
or 98% won't do this and 2 will.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like most people I have a conversation about doing residential rentals.
Yeah.
You can pump it up all you want and disclose the myth, and then they're like, "That's awesome." And then you'll see them a year or two later, and like, "Hey, you done anything?" Like, "Nah, we just kind of."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, a lot of people talk about it.
Yeah, but the same thing with fix and flip, and I think what gets people in real bad trouble with fix and flip is that you've had a wealth of knowledge with the real estate game. Selling.
And I've still made mistakes and lost money.
But you do.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because it takes one, like you said, holding costs is huge, and interest rates aren't anything to play with these days, and the margins are smaller in the flips. And a lot of people think that, like, "Oh, I'll do that and just make some quick cash." It is so much more dangerous than that, and you can get in trouble.
Absolutely.
So I guess my point is, folks that want to fix and flip, please know your numbers. Talk to somebody. Don't just jump in there, buy a house, and try to.
Absolutely, because
you better.
I had a dishwasher check the other day, and they called me and they said, "It's control board. It's $360." And there was a time I wouldn't have thought anything. And go, I can get a dishwasher for $400.
Yes.
Well, now they're plastic inside, and I don't like plastic. I want to give them a good product, and everything I was looking at was $800 and $900 for a dishwasher.
Yeah.
And then I still got to pay somebody to pull that out and dispose and install. I said, "Fix the control panel."
Yeah, just fix it. That's right.
Just fix it.
I want to say something. I appreciate you. We actually worked a deal. Worked together on a house.
We sure did.
And just want to say thank you for this, probably from my clients as well. But there was a knob. You remember the knob that was missing on the stove? And they ended up replacing the stove
because it was going to take so long to get the knobs.
I've
got the knobs, and that stove's in another house now.
Gosh. Do you really?
Yeah, because I got those knobs cost $80 a piece, and they're plastic.
But we appreciate you.
Oh, absolutely.
And I can say that from my
they
bought
one of my rehabs, and that lady that had owned that house we bought that from, again, it was one of those situations. She had a lot of struggles with depression. She was a veteran, and we wanted to help her, and she was trying to get to Texas. And one of the ways I start a conversation when I go as an investor is, what do you need? I can't promise you I'm going to be able to give you that. But what do you need? One lady, when she got down to what she needed, she wanted to pay off a car and some credit cards and have some cash to move. And I was like, "How much cash do you need to move?" And she said, $20,000. Like, she was asking for too much. I said, "Oh, no, ma'am." I said, "I've already run the numbers and I've looked at your house. You will walk out of here with at least $30,000. We gave her more than she asked for. And there are not a lot of investors that would do that. I know there are a lot of good guys out there that would.
For sure.
We fixed that house. We still made $60,000, and I sold it below appraisal to a good friend's kids.
Killing it.
That were moving back here. So I like that overall win when we can really plug in and help multiple people. But she went to Texas and is happy there living with her kids now. She's alone.
Fantastic. That's another win-win story. I don't want to finish your story for you, but you didn't finish it. The reason you were talking about the knobs is they replaced the whole unit for you, so you can get the deal done.
That's right. We just
you didn't finish the. We just ended it on
knobs. And it was a new stove. I had bought it on markdown at Lowe's, and several people were like, "Oh, just reach out. They'll send you the knobs for free." Well, they won't. So.
They sent a couple options. Here's what Lowe's
I wanted
has.
them to see.
And they were able to make that work. And my clients are happy. It was a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a great little house.
It was a great little house.
Still is, I guess.
They love it.
And they're loving
We're still we're planning to go have dinner with them.
Oh,
soon.
good.
They want us to come and have dinner.
That's fantastic.
I
don't want to cross the line.
No, that's fine.
And if I overstep my bounds, say, "Hey, stay your lane."
I'll do fake news. Fake news.
I know my investing is different from yours.
Yeah,
I don't.
Sure.
I guess if I do a fix and flip, I hold it. So I'm more of the buy hold business or whatever. And you probably have that a part of your portfolio.
Sure.
Is what I'm hearing. But going from investor to realtor and what you do, fix and flip, and you're not a broker anymore, do you have to pay RE/MAX for your sales?
Well, no, it's a fine question. I'll answer it as comfortably as I can.
Okay.
I have an agreement with my broker when I own properties. It is different than when I don't own the property. So we do have an agreement.
I didn't want to get you in trouble.
No, that's fine. Because if I buy a property. If I walk down the road here and I find a house and I negotiate with them and I buy that as a consumer just like they are, there's no commission involved. And if I get it fixed up and all of a sudden somebody sees it and comes to me and wants to buy it, there's no commission involved. But I also don't have any errors and emissions insurance involved. So once we complete a property, the word's kind of out there. Other agents know what I'm doing. They know what we have. And once I complete it, I'll usually wait 10, 15, 20 days. Now I'm putting them on the market a little quicker because things are so slow. But I put the word out. And if I sell it, if you bring a buyer to me and I've not listed that, it's like you've come to a for sale by owner. But once I list it, I do have an agreement in place with my broker. And I'm not trying to avoid paying them. I'm just trying to do what is best for my company.
Well, a lot of times, I mean, because real estate agents do tend to get in the vesting side. It seems like after some time or whatnot, and so it can get a little flaky with brokers and agents when you're selling your own property. And I think what I was just trying to say is, like, you gave good insight on you can make the arrangements to make it work. Do your disclosures, whatever you got to do. But that's another thing people need to know. Realtors need to know, if you plan on getting a real estate game, just make sure you know what you need to do, or have those conversations with a broker if, like, you want to sell your own property, or in your case,
and be transparent.
You have it.
I had that conversation before I started, so I knew where I stood. And if I didn't like the agreement, I still have a broker's license. I could have left and gone and been Stephanie Me Real Estate and had my own company and decided what I was going to pay myself. But then I would have to manage me. And that's a terrible person to have to manage. But I like being with the broker because there's a lot of support they bring in that it takes it off my plate. And but you talk about real estate agents getting their license and eventually getting into investing. A lot of them never do.
That's true. Well, that's true too.
And you know, the opportunity's there. And I think, I know I was afraid for a long time, other than just buying for myself for a rental property and, oh, you've got this great listing, I'm going to come buy it, and I'm still paying close to fair market, or maybe it's discounted and I'm getting a deal. I'm still doing that whole game. And it took me some time. I joined communities outside of the Jackson area. And I even joined communities outside of the state. Now, the internet and Facebook and groups make a lot of that possible.
Give an example community.
Well, I'll go ahead and plug a national group. It's called Dealmaker.
I know.
And I love Dealmaker. I've been to Dealmaker twice.
Well, I haven't been to that. I got invited. I should have gone. I know. I need to go. I couldn't tonight. Anyway, but I'm a Bigger Pockets pro.
So I follow Bigger Pockets.
I'm plugged into Bigger Pockets.
But I started learning, and there were enough licensed agents from other states, and I'm like, they're doing this, I can do this too.
Absolutely.
And it all comes down to disclosure. When I get a phone call, when I first started, I'll be honest, I would say, you know, my name is Stephanie Nix, I'm a realtor and investor. Well, they stopped at realtor and never heard investor because they didn't want to deal with the realtor. So I reversed the words. I'm a real estate investor and licensed agent. And I bring a different perspective to the table, because every person that calls me now, especially if they're not a past client, and some of my past clients, I'm like, let me just practice. I'll come in and it's like, okay, this is definitely a retail property. We talk about the reason they're moving. It's a retail opportunity. And I'm going to list it. I'm going to represent them and do everything I would normally do as a retail agent. And then if they are like, look, I had one lady said, look, I got this in a divorce. He owned it before we got married. I put $25,000 into this house, and if you can get me that back, you can have it. I was like, oh, wait a minute. And I ran all my numbers. We gave her 35, and we resold that to somebody that I actually knew that was working with another agent. And I was like, look, bring your agent in. We'll pay your agent. I can't represent you. And they bought that house, and we never did anything to it. But she was glad to get it off her plate immediately, because the market shifted. That end buyer did have a house to sell, and it took us about 3 or 4 months to close. And she was glad not to have to pay house notes and all that stuff during that time. So it brings what I feel like I bring to the table now, I did not have before, and the majority of real estate agents don't. And it's not a bad thing. It's just their business model. I can come in and I can offer you a retail listing. Some we've offered to do a joint venture with through IM that we'll get it, you know, we'll guarantee you this minimum price, and it's usually going to be low because I got to know for market's sake and things happening's sake. We'll do the rehab, and when it sells, we're going to take a portion of that equity that's left, that's how we are getting paid. We helped a young man stop a foreclosure on the Gulf Coast doing that. And I had an agent there listed.
Wow.
I didn't take any commission. I didn't take a referral fee. He knew I was licensed. We helped bring his mortgage current to stop the foreclosure. We paid his mortgage payment for 4 months while that house was on the market.
Wow.
Made about $1,000 worth of repairs. Advanced him some of his equity to get into an apartment, and then got a portion of the equity. When we sold it, we got back everything we put into it and a portion of that equity. And he thanked us. He was so glad to have a fresh start, to not have a foreclosure on his credit records, and was forever grateful. So and then the other option is, I have one we just recently purchased. The lady had only owned it 18 months. She had paid cash for it because she'd gone through a divorce, sold a much bigger home. And I don't know what was going on. She never would completely reveal it. And that's fine. I wouldn't, even if she had. But she just wanted the cash. She said, I need to know how fast you can close. If you can't give me cash, and this was a Tuesday, by next Friday, I'm going to have to go get a title loan on my car.
Wow.
And I said, well, I can make it happen that fast, but the faster it's got to happen, the more I'm going to have to pay my private money lenders to get the money to pay you, the less I can pay you. And she was very satisfied with the deal. She was glad to get her cash and be gone. She just needed, and I stay in touch with her. And she's referred somebody else to me.
Wow.
And,
so that, I mean, the business model seems to be different. I don't want to, I'm not trying to spin negative, but you get people to call and say, hey, I'll buy your house for cash. You know what I mean? Or you get the mailer in. Sounds like the way you have structured with your partners, it's a whole different thing. So, like, explain to us what IM LLC's niche client really looks like.
Our niche client really looks like...
Because it seems like y'all have a process. I mean, you've been in the game long enough. Like, you can get people come to you and say, hey, like, you can get people that you want to fix and flip, and you have that in with your contacts. So I've heard you say people who need to move quick, divorce, whatever. So is that what we're niching?
And I'll clarify, when IM comes in, these people are customers. We don't represent them. They're not clients, and we make that very clear to them. I still have them sign an agency disclosure saying you are a customer, and I repeat that over and over and over. I'm not here to represent you. If you need somebody, get an agent, get an attorney, seek wise counsel. If you trust your mama's boyfriend's ex-wife, then call her. But maybe she's a realtor. But whoever it is, get that guidance. But we want to help people that feel like there's just, there's no other way. And we want to help them without taking advantage of them. I had a lady from the coast. She was in foreclosure a week from the courthouse step sale, and I had called her 2 weeks earlier. And I left her a message, and I said, here's who I am, here's what I do. And we take a different approach at IM. There may be ways and options to save your house. I don't know what your interest rate is, if you've talked to your lender about a modification, if you have people that can help you. Mississippi Home Corp has several programs. Now, I personally know that at that time, and I don't know the current status, Mississippi Home Corp was out of money. But I still told them about that. I left the website name so they could see for themselves, and it wasn't me giving them bad information. And 2 weeks later, my phone rings, and she said, my name's Trudy. You called me, and she said, I had about 40 or 50 phone calls from people wanting to buy my house, and you were the only person that left a message offering to help me. And that's why I called you back. My phone is programmed that nobody gets through unless their number is saved, and you're now saved in my phone. And so we talked through all those things. I said, look, I want you to go to this website. I looked last week, they're out of money, but you need to see for yourself. I said, is there anybody? She needed $12,000. Is there anybody you can think of, family, friends, that would help you out with the money you need to bring this current to not lose your house? And as we sat there and brainstormed on a 45-minute conversation, she said, I know who can loan me this money, and I know they've got it, and I know they will because they've loaned me money in the past, and I had forgotten about them. And she stopped her foreclosure just a few days before Christmas. And I called her on Christmas Eve, and I said, Merry Christmas.
Wow.
She said, it feels a lot different because I'm caught up. She's worked out a repayment plan, and she's paying the person that helped her back.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story.
Your website says that Cash for Your Home program fills the gaps that listing agents, like real estate agents, can't fill. Go into some detail what that gap might be.
Well, as a listing agent, unless obviously if I'm that agent, a listing agent's got to come in and we've got to look at what the market is doing. We've got to be realistic about how long houses are staying on the market, what's that market time, and then what's it take to get to closing. We had one in February off the market for 5 weeks and it fell through over the buyer's financing. And somebody in a crisis can't do that. If they're about to be foreclosed on, they cannot afford to wait. And so we look to fill that gap that if you've really got to have cash and you really want to go, I don't want to buy somebody's house if they think I'm trying to steal their house and they didn't really want to go and they're angry. They're not my person to help. I can't help them. But it's they've resigned themselves to, this is the fact. A lot of times we say hoarder homes. They weren't really a hoarder. There's not stacks of magazines and newspaper, but it's like they walked in one day and they sat this cup down and they went to bed and they got up the next morning and somehow it was okay for that cup to be there and then another dish to be there and then there's a magazine, then there's the broom they got out and quit sweeping. And it's clutter, it's stuff. And I'm like, if you have somewhere to go, if we could move you out, take everything you want, clean this house out. Just getting it cleaned out makes it worth more to a retail buyer because they can't see past all of that. And very few of these sellers are interested in that. They can't see past it. They just want to go. And I've had several that we got when we cleaned them out. They were in good enough shape. I was like, this ain't a bad house. And we've turned around and sold it. And to a person, all those sellers are like, I hope you make a lot of money. I hope you do well on this because they appreciate that we've cared about them and we've helped them. And not to say we as realtors, because I'm a realtor too, but what we are taught to do, what our industry is going in and helping that seller, represent that seller and get them the highest possible price. Bringing in that buyer, helping them navigate the process, get a good lender that's going to represent them well, get a home inspection, help them navigate the repair process, serving people. And then get that sale done. That is what we are about as realtors, and it's a beautiful thing. People do need us, and when we treat them well, they appreciate us. But there is a gap. I had a wholesaler tell me one time, and I used to hate wholesalers. I don't hate them now. I understand them and appreciate them.
That's okay. We had a realtor all saying they used to hate realtors, and they, so it's okay.
Well, but I had a wholesaler tell me if realtors knew how to do their jobs, they would put wholesalers out of business. And I was like, that was huge. So my mission now on the realtor side is to educate realtors about working with investors. Because in any given room of realtors, I'm going to have 80% of them say they hate investors. We're sharks. We're stealing people's houses. We're these awful people. I'm like, well, let me tell you what that group of investors said about the realtors. Because they don't like each other. And you go to other states. I've been told Phoenix, Arizona is a prime example. Realtors and investors work together. And as a realtor, if I were to walk in a home and I was not an investor, and I see this situation and I hear this story and I know they need help, and this is not a retail listing, they just want out of it, then if I'm a good realtor, a good agent, and I'm networking properly, I have investors I can call, and I have multiple investors I can call, and they can come in and they can relieve that pain. You've got to have the proper documents.
Phoenix, Arizona, that's a great example because that is a very hot market, and it's a great, I think it's a great benchmark for real estate deals and investors and whatnot, because you hear about them all the time on the community programs if you are plugged into those. You said it about realtors and investors kind of going at each other. So, with a lot of realtors that could work in the scarcity mindset, what I like about what I'm hearing from you is you're local. A lot of these other people tend not to be. And so that throws it. Remember, we talked about the one bad apple throws the whole bin off. But it seems like you have a more consumer mindset, protecting local market and your people. And that, I think that is really important for what I'm hearing. But with the folks that think realtors could be like, well, that's a great business model, but it's trying to put the realtor out of business. You're sitting there saying, I'm not going after all of them. So kind of put that.
Well, and like you say, a lot of these people that are wholesalers are out of state. They don't even know the market. They call in, and there are no laws currently regarding wholesaling in Mississippi, and we're doing a task force at MAR, hopefully, to work on that soon. I've been told I'm going to be in charge of it.
Coming
we'll
after
see.
you wholesalers.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is this. Wholesalers come in and they make you an offer and they don't tell you, I'm not closing with you. I have an assignment clause in here. I'm looking for an end buyer, and if I don't find it, I'm probably not closing. And all you're going to get is that little $100 or $500 worth of earnest money I put up. They don't disclose that. They're not licensed. They don't fall under the laws of the Real Estate Commission. They don't have to disclose what they're doing. We would like to see some things in place, I believe, that would help cause them to identify the fact that I'm not an end buyer. You're not having to call a realtor, if you will. You're not having to list it in the MLS. You're not having to pay a commission. I'm going to offer you this price, but I've got to find an end buyer to buy it from me. And
that's where a retail realtor can come back into play.
That's right, because they may contact realtors about it. They may they are networking the same way we do. They're doing what we do, but they are not representing that property owner.
Yes.
And I go in and go, yeah, I'm not representing you,
paper
but
around.
that's right. I had this sweet little lady call me. She lives in South Jackson. Her son lived in Atlanta, and he passed away, and they had some rental properties. And she was referred to me by an investor from another city that just didn't work Jackson. And he said, I know I can't help her. And I said, well, that's outside my market area, but I have an investor that I know will pay her a fair price because it's got good tenants, it's got a good rent rate, and he would buy this from her. And I explained to her what was going on. I stepped back and put her in touch with him and said, if you have any questions about the process, call me, but I don't represent you, I don't represent him. And I didn't even get a commission, referral fee, nothing out of that. We were helping this lady. And that was beautiful for me to help her. But she called me recently, now with Jackson and everything going on in the news about the crime and the leadership. A lot of my investors are not even interested in stuff I'm sending them in the part of Jackson where her properties are. And she called me. This guy had put a contract on her house, and he said he would close next week. But according to the contract, he had 60 days, and he had all these inspection conditions. She said, well, he's already looked at the house. I said, Miss Katie, this is very clear what he intends to do to me. And I pointed out the paragraphs in the contract. And I said, you need to call him back and say, if you can close next week, we need to change this closing date to next week and not 60 days from now. And she called me back and said, you were right. And it would have been fine if he had been clear. If she knew she was going to have to wait 60 days, but she didn't understand that. She really believed she was going to close the next week, and he had no intention of closing the next week. And I want to see, if you're going to come and wholesale in my pond, you're going to disclose what you're doing.
There you go.
You better be transparent.
Well, I think that's the importance, too, of like, I've said this before. I mean, I think single-family rental folks, and we're going to get into this with Monique a ton, with single-family rental, because that's what we're going to kind of get into with her. I feel like let's just say investor pool, period. There is already a stigma about that, as it is. But I tell people all the time, your local folks are going to take care of you better than these folks that come out. They may have tons of cash, but your local folks, like you have done, you've just given several wins, stories that came out with a win-win for everybody. And but your local folks tend to do that. It's like I tell people, my houses that I have for rent, when we turn them over, you'll never see a for rent sign in the yard. And the neighbors have my numbers, and I tell them who I am, and I tell them my goal is to not have it look like what people stigma of a rental property is. And I think your local people do that because we have vested interest in the area and the property values and the people we put in the houses. So anyway, great way to kind of, I guess, bridge some of the negativity or the doubts or whatever. And you are willing to work with realtors.
Absolutely. Well, and to educate.
I can say that for sure. I mean,
absolutely. He worked with me. We paid him a commission. It was
one of the best deals that I've had since I got into
You've had some trouble ones.
I've had
some rough ones. When they just go smooth as glass, because I can say
they're not all like that.
After all my years of experience, whether it's a retail or it's an investment property, if it starts hard, it ends hard. It's just hard all the way through. And I would rather step away and then to get into that. But one thing we don't see a lot of in our marketplace, and this is, as you say, a whole nother podcast, is creative buying and financing. I've purchased several homes subject to the existing financing. And not every seller can do that. But when they're sitting there with a 3% mortgage and I'm looking at much higher rates for my private money lenders, if I can take it subject to that mortgage, give them their cash, and I make that mortgage payment until we sell it, I don't hold any. Now, investors I know in other markets hold those for rental properties. They're paying that mortgage for years. We want to get in, we want to get out, and I communicate with that owner every month while we're in the process.
Wow.
And,
that is a whole nother podcast.
See, it is, because that, and that's where it goes back to, I want to educate realtors and talk to them about these different things, and then if they want to know more deeper about it, then that's another class.
Well, you're in a great spot because you're associated with the Mississippi Association of Realtors, so that's awesome. Let's get into the Harley riding.
I want to know about this.
I want to know. I mean, we were going to say, tell us something nobody knows or a good story. You've told a lot of great stories. But now we're riding Harleys.
So it's funny. When I was a kid, my dad had a cousin that had an old motorcycle, and I don't know what it was. But that cousin went to Vietnam and left his motorcycle with Dad, and my dad was explaining, you got to ride it to keep the battery charged up. Well, now we have a battery tender for when we don't ride.
Oh my gosh.
But my dad would take me out every evening on our gravel road and ride that motorcycle.
Oh
and I didn't have a helmet.
That's a great idea on a motorcycle.
But this is back in the day.
But I was 5 and I'm
this
here
ain't a
now,
dirt bike.
so I live to tell about it. But so when my husband and I met, he told me he had a motorcycle. He had a Yamaha at the time. And he was dual career with AT&T Mobility and the Mississippi National Guard, and he was being deployed to Iraq. He calls me sassy all the time, and I would tell people, when we got married, he left 9 days later. And was gone for the first 14 months we were married. And people would go, oh, I heard you got married. Congratulations. I was like, yeah. And I'm so mean, he left me 9 days later. Took him 14 months to come home.
Oh, my God.
But he had always wanted a Harley, and he talked about overseas military sales. So,
tell him thank you for his service.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate
for
that.
sure.
I appreciate
Absolutely.
that. But he, if they were there 6 months, he could get a Harley through overseas military sales. So they found out they were not going to be there 3 months as they were originally told. They were going to be there a total of 14 months from the time he left home to the time he got back. And so I started picking up motorcycle magazines that had Harleys on the cover. And I went and bought a little die-cast model from the toy department of a Harley, and I sent it to him. And he called me up one day. He said, you keep sending me this motorcycle stuff. What are you trying to tell me? I said, have you not ordered the motorcycle yet?
This is different because normally it'd be like the wife's like, you don't need a motorcycle.
I'm a great wife. He
you are a great wife.
But when he came home on leave.
Can I have a motorcycle?
He came home on leave. We went to several Harley dealerships and looked and decided on a Heritage Softail, if you're familiar with those motorcycles.
I don't know.
It's kind of got an old school look to it. It had the white wall tires and the big fenders and everything. And
probably sounds really good.
Yeah, it sounded really good. And once he got back to where he was stationed, which was only about 35 miles from where they captured Saddam, and they captured him while my husband was home on leave, thankfully. But he goes back, and he had to go down to Kuwait to order the bike. And when he did get home in April or May, the bike came in 2 days after he got home. So we went to Meridian. We had it shipped there and went over to pick it up, and then he drove it home. Wow. But we have a lot of fun. And in 2009 or 10, he'll know the date, and I'm ashamed of not knowing it. He had a dog that I had to put to sleep while he was gone. It just ate my soul.
Yeah,
but he had been talking about another dog, and so we went to the Mississippi Animal Rescue League one Saturday afternoon. It was late in the afternoon, but there was all these families with kids, and they had all these medium to big dogs, and he's like, no, I like a small dog. He'd had Pekingese, and he wanted a small dog. And she said, well, we got 2 poodles in the back. They were brought in because the owner was elderly, wasn't taking care of them, had them out in the yard. They were all dirty and matted. They have to be groomed first. And I went in the cat room to look at the cats and pet the cats a minute. And when I walked back out, it's like everybody was gone. I was like, oh, crap, have they closed? And I turned and looked back at the door, and the lady's coming through the door with this little poodle. And Harley, at the time, he weighed about 5 pounds. He was scrawny. He was underweight.
Mm-hmm.
And he was solid white with black ears and a perfect black oval on his back. Now, who does that sound like? Snoopy.
Snoopy, yeah.
And I was like, Snoopy's not a good name for a poodle.
You already gave it away.
And I didn't name him Snoopy. We named him Harley.
Harley, yeah.
Because
Harley came to the door.
We decided to adopt this poodle. I was like, oh, look, a poodle. I had a poodle when I was a kid, so I wanted another poodle. And
you're loving dogs.
He never wanted a poodle. He worked for a groomer and had many a poodle bite him. So we got the poodle against his wishes. And then we got a Chihuahua, which I never wanted, but she's another story.
Believe it or not, poodles are good hunting dogs.
The standard was. This was a toy.
Oh, okay.
This was a little
bit.
This has to be a little one for my story.
We'll talk about that later on.
But we went to the pet store, and as we pulled into the parking lot, he parks next to this Ford Harley Davidson edition. He's like, oh, I love that truck. I know they're not making anymore, but I would love to get one of those one day. And I looked at it and I said, why would we not name the dog Harley? And that's how he got his name. So we go home, and some time goes by, and he goes, do you think Harley would ride the motorcycle with us?
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was like, well, I don't know. I said, he loves being held. So I said, you go outside and get on the bike and crank it. So the noise is already there.
Yes.
And I walked inside with my helmet. I put my helmet on. I put my goggles on, looking at the dog. And I take him outside and I hold him, and we ride through our neighborhood and back, which altogether was about 2 miles.
Yeah.
And he was fine.
Yeah.
So
they like the wind in their face.
Then we were on the hunt. We found a pouch that he rode in on the front of me.
Oh boy!
We found.
You got a picture of this?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
sure
there
do.
it is.
Sure
We're
do.
driving.
We need this picture.
Well, I will tell you, if you go to Facebook and look up Harley Nix Pet, he still has a pet page with videos and everything.
Okay.
He had his own page. I don't have the heart to take
Well,
it
the
down.
pet industry is like $1 billion+ industry.
So he's in this pouch on the front of me that's all American flag and doggles. They're called doggles. We got them at a dog shop. And
you realize this is going to go on the podcast, right?
I do.
Okay.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm proud of my poodle.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
Harley rode over 40,000 miles with us. And the last year we had him in 2017, we took him to Yellowstone. We trailered the bike out there, and we rode all over Yellowstone. And he was in 15 different states. So he had quite the life.
She's pulling up a picture over here.
Yeah.
If you're just listening, she's pulling up a picture so we can see it.
Sorry.
We're going to get him up here in a second. It's trying to...
and I am going to be putting a picture of this up.
There's no doubt. You can't talk about a poodle and
on a motorcycle.
And a motorcycle with goggles.
Named Harley.
Yeah.
Named Harley.
Yeah, we named him Harley. And he lived his best life. He would just run to the door. When he would see us... getting our motorcycle stuff out, he would start jumping and barking and running around.
Yeah.
On Sunday afternoons, if we were sitting in our recliner and it was pretty outside, he'd come in and he'd look at me and go, woof, woof. And I'd go talk to your daddy, and he'd go over there, woof, woof. And my husband would do this, and he'd ruff.
So y'all turned him into a rider.
We did.
Man, that is crazy. So do you have your own bike?
I don't. We do ride together, and that's good with me.
Yeah, you're fine with that.
Because
not to say, I know I said earlier.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, that's 100% going on there.
That's Harley.
That's precious, actually. That's really fun.
Really awesome.
He had a blast, and we took him flying in a biplane.
Oh my!
He rode the Ferris wheel at Pensacola Beach.
Wow.
So the dog's still in the show right now, actually.
He was. There's the Chihuahua. She gets a little honorable mention now and then, but even out at Yellowstone, it was sleeting, and I zipped him up in my rain jacket.
He's
and he pulls his head back out.
Harley's going.
I'm sure he kept you warm a little bit too.
Well, it did. One weekend we did a trip with our local Harley group to Tupelo, and when we got up to come home the next morning, it was 32 degrees.
Ooh.
And I put on a
On
t-shirt.
a motorcycle?
Well, how else were we getting
Well,
back?
I'd have rented a car.
we only took motorcycles.
Yeah.
We're tough. We have leather.
You're tougher than
Look,
that.
that's something that I mean, bike ride. I mean, motorcycle rides. They take serious. Like
we do.
You endure. Whatever's going.
Yeah, we're planning a trip to Niagara Falls this year, and that's a ride. I'm probably gonna fly and meet them.
I'll meet y'all there. Yeah.
But, that's just a long way to go. But we got up that morning. It was 32 degrees, and we had taken our leather chaps with us and everything. But I put a T-shirt on. I put him in his pouch, and I pulled my sweatshirt, my Remax sweatshirt, over him, and had his head sticking out.
Yeah.
And then I always have to buy extra large jackets,
Yeah.
bigger. So I zipped him
put
up
the
there.
dog in there.
Oh yeah,
Of course.
we have to zip the
That's
dog
great.
in.
That is funny.
And we came home, and he kept his head out almost the whole time.
That's a
He
fun
loves
thing.
it. We've
Yeah.
almost caused some wrecks on the interstate because the minivan would go by, and the kids would be going, Mom! And the brake lights come on, and here they come back, and they're pressed to the window.
Wow,
There's a
that's
poodle
funny.
with glasses on.
Yeah, he's got goggles.
He's got
So-
glasses on.
That's great. I actually have a family friend, one of my best friends I grew up with. His mom and dad, they rode a lot together.
Yeah,
Once he
yeah.
got out of college
Mhm.
and he was no longer in the nest, they're like, we're going to get a motorcycle and travel the world.
Right,
and,
right.
or the
So-
States. And they
Mhm,
did. And they
mhm.
loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
And it shocked me because Miss
Yeah.
Jones, I was like, I
Right.
never pictured you on a motorcycle, but she loved
I know,
it
yeah.
like you
and,
do.
And,
I mean,
and
you
we have a Road Glide now. We traded
Yeah.
the Heritage and got
know. Oh, you got a Cadillac now.
Yeah, it's nice because
Yeah.
there's speakers back here and a cushy
Oh,
seat
yeah.
and a cup
Oh, you just-
holder. And
Just cruising.
we have
Ride.
the headphones built
You can
into
talk
our
to each
helmets so
other.
we can talk and
Yeah.
listen to satellite radio
That's
and
cool.
everything. So
Yeah,
it's nice.
That is interesting. I love
Yeah,
getting to meet
yeah.
people you don't
Yeah.
connect with, and then you get to learn something that you're just like, that is such.
You
a
never
cool
would have
story. You just
expected
never
that,
know.
but it's really cool.
Yeah.
I had clients early on that they had like 5 kids, and the youngest one was special needs, and he loved dogs.
Mhm.
And I said, what would he think about seeing Harley on the motorcycle? And she's like, oh my gosh, he would love it. So when we went to the house one day looking at it with them, Rick rode me on the Harley and had Harley on there with me, and we pulled up, and I heard him say, Mama, dogs don't ride motorcycles. And he turned around and went, oh, a dog on a motorcycle.
Oh, that's
and
great.
he just loved him and hugged
Yeah,
on him. It was
made
so
his
sweet.
day.
Yeah,
Made his day.
that's
Absolutely.
awesome.
So that's a lot
That's
of fun.
beautiful.
And yeah, I've been
That's so
known to
cool.
bring him on appointments, even on the bike
Hey,
before.
That's great.
As long as we have our chauffeur.
Well, look, this
yeah.
was great.
Yeah, it was
I
fun.
appreciate you
Thank
being
you.
on. Before we go, tell people where they can
Yes.
find Stephanie
Okay.
everywhere.
Okay,
and,
everywhere.
and don't
Yeah.
forget to
Yeah.
plug IM, because how
Yeah.
long has the business been? We were talking.
Well, I've been in it since 2019.
Okay.
So, and yeah, we started out.
But we're working on a marketing.
Yeah, we were.
Okay.
Well, we started out when I first met with him. He said, "Look, we're wanting to do some fix and flip. We're wanting to do wholesaling. We're wanting to do some buy and hold. We want to do tax sales." I was like, "Oh, slow your roll. I'm a licensed agent. I can't do wholesaling."
Yes.
And I can with disclosure, and I
Yeah.
still say I'm an accidental wholesaler sometimes
Yeah.
because I'll put a contract on a property, and another investor calls me going, "Do you have anything? Well, I'm buying this property. Oh, what I want it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't intentional. I
Sure.
didn't mark it out to
Sure,
them,
sure.
and I wanted to sell it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't planning to sell it. I was going
Yeah.
to fix it up. And
Yeah.
when COVID hit with the rent moratorium, the partners got nervous
Mhm.
about the thought of acquiring these properties and then people not paying us.
Yep.
For sure.
And so we put that on hold. And I do have a relative in the tax sale business.
Mhm.
And I was like, you're going to have to do that if we do it as a company. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So we've kind of put all that on hold, and we focused on the fix and flip.
Yeah.
But like I say, our really niche is helping people. I have agents call me now
Yeah.
that say, do you have any investors that could pay cash for this house? This person needs out of this house we're working on right now.
Yeah.
The lady's husband passed away 3 years ago from brain cancer.
Wow.
And she said, I just need out. I need a fresh start. I need a change. And we've worked with her and are getting that fixed up to resale
Yeah.
and are doing a profit share with her. But that is really where we come in. We want to help
Yeah.
those people. And I told that agent,
Mhm.
and this is something that surprised her. I said, when we sell this house, if I do pay a buyer agent commission, which we probably will have to get it sold, I will pay you a 25% referral fee based on what I pay that buyer's agent, because I'm not going to take a full commission when I
Yeah.
list it. And her question to me was, why would you do that?
Mhm.
I said, who are you going to call next time you have a seller in trouble
Gonna
and need a
call
cash
you.
buyer?
Gonna call
Right.
you.
She's like,
Right.
good point. I
Yeah.
have one we're closing in Castlewoods next week. He was
Mhm.
talking to another agent and was going to get it fixed up and sell it, but he had multiple properties. He
Yeah.
was stressed. He wanted out, and he met my contractor, and I came in, and he said, well, I'm worried about my agent. I said, I'll call her. And I told her, I said, I'll pay you a referral fee.
Yeah.
And I want to take care of my agent friends.
So
That's
there
important.
you go.
You're
working with realtors.
So, yeah,
That's
absolutely.
Awesome.
So I don't want to ever shut anybody out that can be a part of a transaction.
Well,
but
it seems like too, though, on the flip side, you rely on realtors to bring you the buyers.
Absolutely.
So that it connects all
Absolutely.
the dots.
And that's what we have done. But no, as far as getting in touch with me, my cell phone is 99% of the way to reach me, and I answer when I can. 601-842-3606. RE/MAX, of course, the Real Estate Commission wants me to mention RE/MAX Connection and our office number of 601-326-2670. I have to think about that. I know 326, is it 2670 or 3670? Can you look that up? I don't know.
We'll come back.
I do that too.
I think it's 326-3670. We're in Flowwood. And then I've got a phone number 601-401-6965.
Yeah.
And it still rolls through. It's got a little different ringtone, so I know. And we just want to help people find that peace and freedom if that's what they really need is out of that real estate.
What is any social media plugs? Do you have
we have a website, Cash for MS.
Yep.
Obviously short for Mississippi, cashformshomes.com.
Okay.
And my partner Morgan is working on getting all our social media out there, and you'll be able to find links to all that on the website.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, great.
Okay, 601-326-3670 RE/MAX.
There we go.
I'm never there. If I'm showing up there, I either have an earnest money check or a commission check, or I'm wanting to pick up my commission check.
Sounds like a realtor.
Absolutely. But the office knows when they see me coming, there's money somewhere coming in,
and they're fine with that
going
too.
out. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and any realtor will tell you, we don't make money sitting in the office. When I got in this business, because I had a goal to quit the bank in 6 months, I was in the office every morning. In fact, I had been an admin. I made the coffee, and I often had the coffee made when the secretary got there. I'd left and would go to the bank for a few hours and come back and go to work. And at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm going in. We didn't have MLS on the internet, guys. Y'all are so spoiled. We had to go to the office and use the software because it was way too expensive for a new agent. About the time I was ready to buy it, we went online. But I would head to the office around 5 in the afternoon, and the secretary's closing everything up, and these other agents are walking out. I'm like, where are y'all going? And they're like, we're going home. We got to cook dinner.
Yeah.
And I was in there till 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night doing research.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I was researching neighborhoods. I was looking for, okay, people move every 3 to 5 years. Where was the neighborhood turnover 3 to 5 years ago? Because those are the neighborhoods I'm going to go work.
Oh, that's a good.
And that's how I got going. I hustled.
Yeah. Well,
and now we just are on social media and we're running around everywhere. We never go to
MLS.
Right. Yeah. We do all the hustling.
I can wake up at midnight and get on MLS and look for stuff.
That's true. That's right. And the turnover house is now like 7 to 10 years.
That's right.
Look for those neighborhoods.
I know, right?
Anyway.
Yeah, people stay a lot longer than they used to.
That's right.
All right.
That's great.
Well,
Stephanie,
thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. This is
Thank
awesome.
you so much for being here and being a part of this. We really appreciate you. And
well, I appreciate y'all inviting me on. So
you're very welcome. Thank you. You may go ahead and take us out?
Yeah, take us out, man.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching this episode today. Hope y'all learned a lot of things about investing and all the things with real estate. We appreciate y'all for listening. God bless.